Welcome to Health Coach for Women. Intentional living for more happiness and fulfillment in your everyday life with your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker. Join Marsha as she shares her own personal wellness journey, as well as stories from our guests that will enlighten and inspire you to move towards better health and happiness. Now, here's your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Health Coach for Women, a podcast where we explore alternative and holistic solutions for better health and wellness. And I am your host, Marsha. Now, today I'll be talking to you about the brain and gut health and basically pre and probiotics. But before I get into that, I want you to go ahead and subscribe, hit the subscribe button, like, share. Be sure to like this episode at the end of the podcast. All right, and so let's get back to today's topic. Of course, I have a quote. The best and most efficient pharmacy is within your own system. And this is by Robert C. Peel. The best and most efficient pharmacy is within your own system. Now, I like that. All right, so what do we know about pre and probiotics? What do we know about it? Well, we do know that there is different bacteria that lives in the gut, right? We know this. Different bacteria does live in the gut. There's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria, but we need bacteria nevertheless. Okay, so prebiotics, right? Prebiotics is a type of dietary fiber that the human body cannot digest. All right, but it's essential for good bacteria in your gut. And these bacteria, they're found in different foods such as garlic, onions, bananas, asparagus, and legumes. And by having these prebiotics, it helps promote the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut. So these dietary fibers, right? They produce this short chain fatty acids, right? And these short-term fatty acids is essential for maintaining the health in the gut lining, which also helps with reducing inflammation and supporting your immune system. And that's very important. So with research have shown that prebiotics can range to a host of benefits, including improving digestion and reducing inflammation, as I mentioned, and promoting that good bacteria. Now, there's a study that was published in the Journal of Nutrition that found consuming a diet high in prebiotic fiber led to increased beneficial bacteria in the gut, as well as reducing or having a reduction in the harmful bacteria. Now, that is interesting because people have so many different issues where they can't eat certain foods, right? And so why is that? It's because of certain foods or certain gut in the bacteria is harmful, right? And so you have irritable bowel syndrome, or sometimes you get the bloating in your stomach, things like that. And so these things are related to the bacteria in the gut. All right. And probiotics, on the other hand, now I want to talk about probiotics. These are living organisms, right? And they live in the gut and they offer a host of benefits. And they're essential. Their job is basically for maintaining a healthy balance of microbes in the gut, which can help, again, boost the immune system and improve digestion for overall support and mental health as well. And we already know that there is a link between the gut and the brain. We know this, right? So when we have the prebiotics and the probiotics. What the prebiotics does is help even enforces and helps the probiotics even more in doing their job. And with the research on that, with probiotics, it's shown that probiotics can have a range of host of benefits. Okay, and so with the again, we know with the immune system and reducing inflammation. But the Journal of American Medical Association found that probiotics could help reduce the risk of antibiotic-associated diarrhea. And another study published in the International Journal of Food Microbiology found that probiotics could help reduce symptoms of lactose intolerance. And I find that quite interesting. So when we're eating foods, everything that we eat is not meant for us to eat, because and everybody's gut is different, right? And so I may have more good gut bacteria than someone else, or vice versa, right? So it all depends on the individual. And so there's research on the gut-brain axis, right, which I talked about, which refers to the complex communication network between the gut and the brain. And this network plays a vital role in our mental health and overall well-being. And so the studies are showing that the pre and probiotics can impact the gut-brain axis, leading to improvements of having a better mood, better behavior, right? And improved cognition. So an example that they gave here in the Journal of Psychiatric Research found that probiotics could help improve symptoms of depression, right? And so certain foods that we eat can cause us to can have an effect on our mood, right? And I talked to you before, or what I've mentioned on different episodes about the lack of vitamin D, right? And we need vitamin D. And so, and that we don't, our bodies does not produce that. We get that from the sun and what's found in our food. And so when people say get a 15 minutes of daily sunshine, it's for good reason, right? Because we need vitamin D. And a lack of vitamin D and can cause mood swings, right? Mood swings, spasms in the legs, and I mentioned before that, I was deficient in vitamin D and it impacted my mood. And so not realizing then, but looking back in hindsight, I realize and see now that the different things I was experiencing during that time was partially in relation to a lack of the vitamin D, which I had to get a prescription strength. I couldn't get the regular over-the-counter prescription. This was a more concentrated or contained more than your regular over-the-counter vitamin D that I needed. And so that is important. So this just goes to show you, right, that we have to really pay attention. All right, we have to be more mindful and pay attention. Now, of course, you don't know maybe the different growth or the overgrowth of this or the overgrowth of that we could have in our gut, right? But following certain protocols, we can look and we can analyze ourselves and, okay, you're experiencing more bloating, or maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome, certain things like that, or different things that you may be experiencing. And even the time from the time that we eat until the time it's expelled out the body, whether it is expelled out rapidly or whether expelled out maybe within an 8-hour period, or whether it's expelled within 72 hours later. These things you have to look at and say, something's not right. But how do you know that, right? And so that's where your doctor, your healthcare professional will come in and tell you and let you know, okay, well, they'll run some tests and things like that. And they'll look at these things to see what could be going on. And that's where your practitioners come in, your holistic health coaches, your doctors, whatever, who you work with, they work in conjunction together to help you improve your wellness. All right. And so those are just some of the things that I wanted to mention here today. And just to go in a little bit more, all right. And so the prebiotics, as I mentioned, it's beneficial for the bacteria in your gut, and it helps breaks down the food and absorb the nutrients more efficiently, which we need. That we don't need something where it's absorbed too quickly, because of course, if it's absorbed too quickly, then it's expelled out of the body faster. And so the probiotics, it helps with promoting the growth of the bacteria and breaking down those foods in the gut, reducing symptoms of gastrointestinal issues, right? That constipation that I mentioned, as well as bloating. And we know that it can help with strengthening your immune system, right? It helps strengthening your immune system by maintaining a healthy balance of those gut microbes. Now, there are a host of them, which I'm going to go over. I can't even pronounce them, so I don't know. I may have to just put it up on the screen, but I can't even mention some of them, even to repeat it by name. So just to name a few, I'm not going to mention a whole bunch of them because I could barely pronounce them. Okay, so Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, I don't know. Lactobacillus casei, gasseri, bifido, I sound like a fool. Anyway, so there's a list of them. There's a host of them. I can't pronounce them, but they're good for you, right? So that's that in a nutshell.
Trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi live on or inside of us, and maintaining a good, balanced relationship with them is to our advantage. Together, they form the gut microbiome, a rich ecosystem that performs a variety of functions in our bodies. The bacteria in our guts can break down food the body can't digest, produce important nutrients, regulate the immune system, and protect against harmful germs. We don't yet have the blueprint for exactly which good bacteria a robust gut needs, but we do know that it's important for a healthy microbiome to have a variety of bacterial species. Many factors affect our microbiomes, including our environment, medications like antibiotics, and even whether we were delivered by C-section or not. Diet, too, is emerging as one of the leading influences on the health of our guts. And while we can't control all these factors, we can manipulate the balance of our microbes by paying attention to what we eat. Dietary fiber from foods like fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, and whole grains is the best fuel for gut bacteria. When bacteria digest fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids that nourish the gut barrier, improve immune function, and can help prevent inflammation, which reduces the risk of cancer. And the more fiber you ingest, the more fiber-digesting bacteria colonize your gut. In a recent study, scientists exchanged the regular high-fiber diets of a group of rural South Africans with the high-fat, meat-heavy diets of a group of African Americans. After just 2 weeks on the high-fat, low-fiber, Western-style diet, the rural African group showed increased inflammation of the colon as well as a decrease of butyrate. That's a short-chain fatty acid thought to lower risk of colon cancer. Meanwhile, the group that switched to a high-fiber, low-fat diet had the opposite result. So what goes wrong with our gut bacteria when we eat low-fiber processed foods? Lower fiber means less fuel for the gut bacteria, essentially starving them until they die off. This results in less diversity and hungry bacteria. In fact, some can even start to feed on the mucus lining. We also know that specific foods can affect gut bacteria. In one recent microbiome study, scientists found that fruits, vegetables, tea, coffee, red wine, and dark chocolate were correlated with increased bacterial diversity. These foods contain polyphenols, which are naturally occurring antioxidant compounds. On the other hand, foods high in dairy fat, like whole milk, and sugar-sweetened sodas were correlated with decreased diversity. How food is prepared also matters. Minimally processed, fresh foods generally have more fiber and provide better fuel. So lightly steamed, sautéed, or raw vegetables are typically more beneficial than fried dishes. There are also ways of preparing food that can actually introduce good bacteria, also known as probiotics, into your gut. Fermented foods are teeming with helpful probiotic bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. Originally used as a way of preserving foods before the invention of refrigeration, fermentation remains a traditional practice all over the world. Foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, and kombucha provide variety and vitality to our diets. Yogurt is another fermented food that can introduce helpful bacteria into our guts. That doesn't necessarily mean that all yogurt is good for us, though. Brands with too much sugar and not enough bacteria may not actually help. These are just general guidelines. More research is needed before we fully understand exactly how any of these foods interact with our microbiomes. We see positive correlations, but the insides of our guts are difficult places to make direct observations. For instance, we don't currently know whether these foods are directly responsible for the changes in diversity, or if something more complicated is happening. While we're only beginning to explore the vast wilderness inside our guts, we already have a glimpse of how crucial our microbiomes are for digestive health. The great news is, we have the power to fire up the bacteria in our bellies. Fill up on fibers, fresh and fermented foods, and you can trust your gut to keep you going strong.
So some of the probiotics, some of the foods that are probiotic, you have kombucha, which is a fermented tea, sauerkraut, coconut kefir, yogurt, of course, it is dairy, but yogurt is a good probiotic as well for those who drink milk. And then you have apple cider vinegar, brine cured olives. I have my whole list here. Tempeh, I'm just going over just a few of them. Miso, which is if I'm saying it correctly, it's a traditional Japanese spice found in many traditional foods. There is also kimchi, that's also related to sauerkraut. You have that. And there's a host of other things, right? And so, and mushrooms is very good for you also. Oh my gosh, mushrooms. I was listening to a webinar for practitioners, and these people, they make the formulas that we use, right? And so these formulas and he went into detail, the science part of it. I wouldn't get too much into that, but he went into the science part of it, of the different things, and the bacteria that grows, and the thing of this with the soil and things like that, and bacteria, and how beneficial these things are for you. But the key thing of what I noticed that he said, that the benefits of the soil, right? The benefits of the soil and the bacteria that it contains, which is so beneficial. And this is how they make these things, right? Again, going back to nature, right? To these plants and things that comes out of the ground. Many of these things that has the good bacteria, contains these bacteria that we need to help us with our health and our immune system, and strengthening our immune system, right? And so with these products, it's just basically with the probiotics, there's a host of them out there. But the key thing I want you to remember is that you want to contain your fruits and vegetables. You want to have your pre and your probiotics, the prebiotics, such as I mentioned, as the garlic, the onions, and things like that. You want to maintain a healthy balance in your gut. So pay attention to it. And for those of you who don't pay attention to your stool, you should. Okay, that's very important. You should pay attention to your stool, the color, the odor, how many times do you go? These are all things that you should be looking at, because then these are the things that if you do have, hopefully you don't, but if you do have gut issues or any other type of issues going on, you'll be able to answer the questions with your healthcare professional and let them know, like when you go to the bathroom, and to be able to give him that information, whether you go once a day, once every 3 days. It's normal to go every day, and even more than that a day, 2 or 3 times a day. It's normal. right? And so you want to pay attention to these things so that you'll have the right information, enough data to provide your healthcare provider when we're looking at different things when it comes to healing the gut. All right. And so I think I covered about everything that I needed to cover today in this episode. Now, if you are someone who is battling poor cognition, just brain fog, and maybe bloating, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pain, things like that. If you want to, you can reach out to me. My information is there. It's provided here. It'll be in somewhere in the description somewhere. You can reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If I can, you can shoot me an email, whatever it is. But I do hope that you got some value out of this episode today. And until next time, bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening to Health Coach for Women with your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.